Hello. For our last situation in the Chapter 9 test review, we have two groups of students were selected to participate in a study to determine if having class notes has an effect on test scores. The students were randomly SRS placed into two groups. One group was the control group without study notes, and the other group of students was given study notes. Each group had 30 students. The average test score for the first test for the control group without the study notes was X bar 80, S 1.5, and the average test score for the group with study notes was X bar 87, S of 5. Should the study notes be used for the next test at the 5% level? Basically saying, is there a difference between the two? And the idea is that is the first group lower because they didn't have the class notes. So here we have two separate groups. We're dealing with numbers 80, 87. Not proportions. So we have two separate groups. So we're going to use a two-sample t-test. So again, to review what's given, the first group without the study notes, X bar is 80, standard deviation of 1.5, and it has 30 students in it. The second group with the study notes had an X bar, an average of 87 with a standard deviation of 5, and that also had 30. The two groups do not have to be the same. In this case, they both have the same sample size, but they don't have to be. And we're doing at the 0.05. So because we have two separate groups, HO is going to be mu of the control group equals mu of the study notes. So the average test score for the control group without the study notes is equal to the average test score for the group with the study notes. And then our HA, we're saying that the control group would be lower. So HA would be mu of the control group is less than mu of the study notes. So the average test score for the control group without the study notes is less than the average test score for the group with the study notes. And order is important. We have control first, study notes second. So our conditions still need to be, condition 1 needs to be random, which should have been stated in the problem. We assume the data is normal. Remember, we need 30. We do have 30 in each case, each group, so we're good there. And our population has to be greater than 10 times the sample size. So our population is all students taking the exam. That's greater than 10 times N1 plus N2, which is 30 plus 30 is 60. 60 times 10 is 600. Then to do our work, we have to find our SE. So to find our SE, it's the first standard deviation squared divided by the first n plus the second standard deviation squared divided by the second n. So it's the square root of 1.5 squared divided by 30 plus 5 squared divided by 30, and it gives you 0.9531. I'm going to go ahead and type that in the calculator because we need to be careful in typing that in. I'm going to hit second, x squared for square root. We have 1.5 squared divided by 30. So I'm going to put 1.5 squared divided by 30 plus 5 squared divided by 30. Press enter, and that's where we get our 0.9531 if we round it 4 decimal places. Make sure we practice that. Then to find our test statistic, it's x bar 1 minus x bar 2 divided by our SE. So it's 80 minus 87 divided by 0.9531, which gives us negative 7.34. Again, that's a very large number to the left, negative 7.34. So an area at negative 7.34 to the left of that would be a very, very small p-value, that little area right there. We can compare it to our critical value. So to find t star, we have 95%, and there are really two ways to find out what the degrees of freedom is because it's an estimate. You could take the smaller of the two ends and subtract 1, since they're both the same. 30 minus 1 is 29, and I'll go to the table to look at it. And again, it's an estimate. If you want to be a little more exact, you could take the two ends, add them, and get 30 plus 30 is 60, and then subtract 2, because there's 2, and look up 58. But either one is good. We're just using it as an estimate. So if we go to our table, 95 would be that 5%, and then we're going to go down to 29, and that gives us the 2.043. But again, if we also did 60 minus 2, which is 58, or even get close to that, and we chose here, if we went to 60, let's say 2.00. So either one, 2.0 2.043 or 2.0 would be fine because it's an estimate. And if we look at that, it can be positive or negative. In this case, since the test statistic is negative, we make that negative. The area to the left of negative 2.045 is much larger than the very, very small area to the left of negative 7.34. The area to the left of negative 7.34 is our p-value, which is smaller than our alpha, which would be the area to the left of 2.045. But we're going to find our p-value and base it that way. So we go to our calculator, and to find our p-value, we hit stat to the right for tests. We're going to do a 2-sample t-test because we have 2 different groups. This time we have stats, so we choose stats. The first group, which we put as the control group, that one has 80, is our x bar 1. Enter. The standard deviation is 1.5. And our first n is 30. Our second x bar is 87. Enter. Our second standard deviation is 5. Enter. And our second n is 30 as well. Then we get the question if it would be not equal to, less than, or greater than. This would be less than. The control group is lower than the study notes group, so we choose less than. Anytime we ask for pooled in this case, we're going to put no. We do not want them pooled together. We want to keep them separate. Then we can go to calculator draw. If you go to draw, it gives you a picture of it. Notice our test statistic is very close at negative 7.3447 with a p-value being essentially 0. If you want to know the exact p-value, we hit stat. Over to the right for tests. Choose test, 2-sample t-test number 4, but this time choose calculate versus choosing draw. So when you push enter on calculate, our p-value, it says 7.95572, but be careful, there's an e to the negative 9. That means move the decimal 9 places to the left, so it's 0.80799557. So our p-value is very, very, very small. So our p-value is essentially 0 at 0.00000000796, which is definitely smaller than our alpha of 0.05. Since our p-value is smaller, we reject HO. There is statistically significant evidence to reject HO. We conclude the average test score for the control group without the study notes is less than the average test score for the group with study notes. So we're concluding that if you do not have the study notes, your grade will be lower. Now remember, lower. We're comparing to, so when I do the confidence interval, next, we're expecting lower. I'm expecting 2 negatives. If the first group was higher, I'd expect 2 positives. If we weren't sure, it'd be negative or positive. Could be lower, could be higher. So we're going to do our work for our confidence interval. By hand, it's x bar 1 minus x bar 2 plus or minus our t star times our SE. So we do 80 minus 87, which is negative 7, plus or minus the t star we're using is 2.045 times our SE of 0.9531. If I do the minus, we get negative 8.949. With the plus, we get negative 5.051. Notice that they're both negative because it's lower, and it's telling you lower by how much. We verify those numbers in the calculator. Since we're doing a 2-sample t-test, that is stat to the right. Since we did a 2-sample t-test, we're going to do a 2-sample t-interval. 2-sample t-interval is all the way down to number 0. Push enter. Keep it at stats. The numbers come over where x bar is 1, S1 is 1.5, N1 is 30, x bar 2 is 87, S is 5, N2 is 30. Our confidence level is 0.95. Double check that. Hit pooled is still no. Hit enter on calculate, and it comes very close to what we got in the calculator, but the same by hand. Negative 8.94, negative 5.06. So remember, what do the negatives mean? So when we write this sentence, we're going to interpret what they mean. So we are 95% confident the average test score for the control group without the study notes is between 5.06 to 8.94 points lower. So we're interpreting the negatives. We don't put the negative in the interpretation. The negatives mean lower than the average test for the group with the study notes. So if you do not have the study notes, your test will be lower, and it's going to be lower by 5.06 to 8.94 points. And then you have all of the step-by-step calculator in the review. Thank you.